Have you ever felt a doll's eyes following you, even when you swear it's just plastic and paint? Tonight, we're diving into the shadows where dolls aren't toys, they're watchers, whisperers, and sometimes, killers. From forgotten classics to cursed icons, these haunted companions are ready to invade your dreams. So, turn off the lights if you dare, and let's explore the top 10 classic doll horror movies you must watch before you sleep. If you love chilling horror content like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The fear is only beginning. 1. Puppet Master, 1989. A group of eerie puppets come alive with deadly intentions, turning a quiet hotel into a horrifying battleground, and trust me, once they start moving, you'll never look at dolls the same way again. Have you ever imagined what a puppet could do if it wasn't controlled by strings, but by pure evil? Puppet Master takes that nightmare and breathes life into it, literally. It all starts with a mysterious old hotel, a hidden secret, and a puppeteer who has mastered a dark and forbidden ritual. These puppets aren't cute, they aren't harmless. They are angry, alive, and loyal only to their sinister master, even after death. As the guests arrive at the Bodega Bay Inn, they think they're simply stepping into a quiet, isolated place, but what they don't know is that tiny footsteps are already echoing behind the walls. Little glass eyes flicker with awareness. Sharp blades glisten, waiting, and in the silence, a twisted giggle may escape a wooden mouth that should never move on its own. That's where the terror truly begins. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night and seeing a puppet standing by your bed, its head slowly tilting as if studying your fear. What would you do? Run? Scream? Freeze completely? The characters here don't get much time to choose. Once the puppets hunt, they don't stop. Each puppet has its own horrifying personality, from the drill-headed maniac to the grinning puppet with a hook for a hand. They aren't just killers, they're performers of a sadistic show. And the most terrifying thing? Their small size doesn't make them any less deadly. In fact, it makes them nearly impossible to escape. What makes Puppet Master unforgettable is that it plays with something we all experienced as children: dolls around us. Lifeless during the day, but what about when the lights go out? Have you ever felt a toy staring at you while you tried to sleep? Have you ever covered a doll because its eyes felt too real? If you've ever had that chilling instinct, this movie will bring it all rushing back. So, do you think dolls are harmless? Or do you secretly believe some objects might be hiding a soul that isn't supposed to be there? Comment your thoughts. Would you dare keep a puppet in your room after watching this? And hey, if this story already made your skin crawl, stick with us. The nightmares are just warming up. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the next dolls we meet might be even hungrier. 2. Magic, 1978. A ventriloquist's dummy begins to take control of its master, blurring the line between sanity and possession, and you'll be left wondering who's truly pulling the strings. Have you ever talked to yourself, and felt something talk back? Magic dives straight into that unsettling fear, the voice inside your head that isn't yours. Here, we follow Corky, a shy and awkward magician who suddenly becomes a sensation because of one thing: his foul-mouthed dummy named Fats. But the real terror begins when Fats no longer waits for Corky to move his lips. He wants independence, he wants control, and most terrifying of all, he wants Corky to listen. Imagine holding a puppet that knows your secrets, your weaknesses, your darkest thoughts, and whispers that it can fix everything. What if that wooden grin hides a mind sharper than yours? A temper hotter than yours? A hunger deeper than yours? As Corky tries to escape his rising fame and the pressure to prove he's normal, Fats grows louder, more aggressive, and far too real. There's something chilling about how magic plays with the idea that horror doesn't always come from demons or curses. Sometimes it comes from the human mind cracking under loneliness. You may find yourself asking, is Fats alive? Or is Corky simply losing his grip on reality? And which version is actually scarier? Picture this. Late at night, Corky tries to sleep, but Fats is there, sitting upright, staring back with those lifeless eyes that somehow seem full of hate. The dummy whispers orders. He demands obedience. Corky's hands shake as he tries to silence the puppet he once controlled so easily. But how do you fight something that comes from the darkest part of yourself? The movie forces us to face a terrifying question: what if the monster is not the puppet, but the human holding it? And if that's true, what does that say about us? There's a moment when Corky tries to prove he can perform without Fats, and he fails miserably. The silence becomes a prison. His own voice betrays him. It's as if the puppet stole his soul. How about you? Do you think a person can become so dependent on something that it starts to define them? Or even dominate them? Magic isn't just a horror film, it's a psychological trap. It invites you to stare at the puppet and wait for it to blink. Let me ask you this. Have you ever owned a toy that felt just a little too real? One you didn't like turning your back on? Share your thoughts below. Do you think Fats is alive or just a reflection of a broken mind? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because next, we're entering even darker doll territory, where sanity is optional, and fear is guaranteed. 3. Dolly Dearest, 1991. A young girl becomes dangerously attached to a doll possessed by an ancient evil, and if you think you've seen creepy dolls before, this one might change your mind forever. Have you ever felt fear growing slowly, quietly, right inside your own home? Dolly Dearest takes that everyday comfort, a child and her beloved toy, and twists it into something deeply disturbing. The story begins when an American family moves to Mexico to start a new life, full of hope and dreams. But their excitement quickly turns into terror when their daughter, Jessica, discovers a toddler-sized doll with jet black hair and an icy, knowing stare. It looks harmless at first, cute, even, but that's the danger. Evil doesn't always announce itself loudly. Soon, Jessica's behavior changes. She whispers to the doll. She laughs with the doll. She obeys the doll. And when adults try to interfere, Dolly makes sure they regret it. Because this spirit living inside isn't playful, it's an ancient demonic force, awakened from a hidden tomb and hungry to take over more than just one child. Picture this. You walk into a dark room at night, and the doll is no longer where you left it. You hear tiny footsteps running across the floorboards. A shadow too small to be human, but too fast to be normal. That's the kind of creeping dread this movie creates. That suffocating thought that something is moving just outside your line of vision. What makes Dolly Dearest especially chilling is the transformation, not of the doll, but of the child. The widening smile, the sudden aggression, the voice that doesn't sound like hers anymore. There's something horrifying about a pure, innocent kid slowly being taken away by something unseen and unstoppable. And as a parent, what would you do? Would you believe your child is just going through a phase? Or would you admit the unthinkable, that a toy might be possessed? And here's a question for you. Have you ever seen a child talk to a toy like it's a real person? Did you ever wonder if maybe something was talking back? As the movie escalates, the mother becomes the only one who sees the truth, and she must battle a supernatural entity using her daughter as a doorway. It's a fight fueled not just by horror, but by desperation, fear, and love. That emotional core hits differently. Because in real life, what's scarier than losing someone you love to something you can't explain? So tell me, do you think dolls can hold spirits? Or is all of this just fantasy, until the lights go out and a doll decides to move on its own? Comment your thoughts below, and remember to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying tales that might just keep you awake tonight. 4. Pin, 1988. When a lonely boy becomes obsessed with an anatomically correct medical dummy. The line between comfort and madness shatters, and you'll find yourself questioning what alive truly means. Some fears don't come from monsters, they come from the human mind twisting under pressure. Pin is that kind of horror. It doesn't rely on jump scares or loud effects. Instead, it slowly crawls under your skin, whispering doubts you can't ignore. We follow Leon, a quiet, isolated boy raised under the cold, clinical parenting of a doctor-father. In their house, affection is rare, but there is someone who listens. Someone who never judges. Someone made of plastic flesh and hollow silence. Pin, a medical dummy used for anatomy lessons. To make things less frightening for his children, the father throws his voice and makes Pin talk. But while Leon's sister grows up and sees through the trick, Leon never does. Imagine being so lonely that a doll becomes your best friend, not as a toy, but as a real person. Now imagine what happens when that belief refuses to fade, even as you grow older. The horror in Pin is psychological, intimate, and terrifyingly believable. Leon doesn't just love Pin, he trusts him more than any living being. He tells Pin his secrets, his fears, his anger, and Pin answers back, or at least Leon believes he does. That bond becomes dangerous when tragedy strikes, and Leon is left alone with the one voice he can't afford to hear. Picture walking into a room and seeing a life-sized dummy sitting perfectly still in a chair, its skin too smooth, its eyes too empty, its silence too loud. You feel watched, even though you know it shouldn't be able to see. That uneasy feeling? Pin turns it into a nightmare that never quite looks supernatural, but feels disturbingly real. As Leon becomes more dependent on Pin, the dummy's influence grows darker. People who threaten their bond suddenly disappear or meet mysterious fates. And here's the chilling question the movie plants in your mind. Is Pin controlling Leon? Or is Leon using Pin as an excuse for his own impulses? Which one is scarier? A doll that manipulates a person? Or a person who hides his violence behind a doll? Leon's descent is like watching a fragile mind crack, slow at first, then all at once, and we can't look away, because the fear hits close to home. We've all talked to inanimate objects before, a stuffed animal, a toy, the mirror, but what if one day, something talked back? So tell me, do you think Pin is alive, or just a reflection of darkness inside the human heart? Comment below your theory. I'm curious to hear which side chills you more. And if this story already has you questioning your own childhood toys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. The dolls we meet next may haunt you even longer. 5. Tourist Trap, 1979. A group of friends is trapped in a roadside attraction filled with mannequins that move, and watch, and hunger for fear. Are you ready to hear them whisper? Some places on the road feel wrong the moment you step into them, too quiet, too empty, like the air itself is holding its breath. Tourist Trap takes that eerie gut feeling and transforms it into one of the creepiest doll-like nightmares ever filmed. The story follows a group of young travelers who break down near an old roadside museum filled with mannequins. And if you think mannequins are harmless, stiff decorations, this movie will make you avoid every shop window for the rest of your life. The mannequins here don't stay still, not when you look at them. And especially not when you look away. Their faces crack open into frozen screams. Their mouths gape as if about to speak. And sometimes, they do. They stare with those glossy soulless eyes, judging you, wanting you, because in this abandoned attraction, someone, or something, controls them like puppets. The mannequins twitch, blink, tilt their heads, and laugh in horrible, breathy gasps. Imagine hearing a mannequin laugh behind you, and when you turn, its smile is wider. The villain in this story is more than just a killer. He's a puppeteer who believes he can fill emptiness by creating his own twisted friends. In his world, silence is unbearable, so he forces sound and movement into the lifeless. Every mannequin is a prisoner, a victim frozen in plastic, eyes wide in terror, forever stuck between life and death. The film plays with psychic horror, mind games, and that unnerving feeling that something human might be trapped inside those hollow shells. What makes Tourist Trap so unsettling is how quickly the comfort of companionship becomes a trap. One moment, the group is laughing together, the next, they're separated, scared, and surrounded by watchers who inch closer with every flicker of light. It's a slow burn terror that builds from curiosity to paranoia, until you're afraid of even blinking. Let me ask you something. Have you ever stood in a room full of mannequins and felt like one of them might move at any second? Which one? The one with the cracked cheek? The smiling one in the back? What if one stepped forward, only when the lights went out? This film taps into a deep-rooted fear, the fear that the lifeless may suddenly become alive. And that we are being studied like exhibits in a nightmare museum. And here's the chilling thought. What if mannequins are made from real people, people who once screamed too? Tell me in the comments, do mannequins creep you out already? Or will this movie be the one that finally gets into your head? And if you're brave enough to keep going, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The next doll on our list might be even closer to coming alive. 6. Pinocchio's Revenge, 1996. A grieving mother brings home a mysterious wooden puppet connected to a brutal murder case. But what if the puppet isn't just wood? What if it wants revenge? Have you ever looked at a toy and felt like it was watching you, waiting for the moment you let your guard down? Pinocchio's Revenge takes that uneasy feeling and stretches it into a waking nightmare. The film follows Jennifer, a defense attorney who thinks she's found a harmless piece of evidence, a simple wooden puppet from a disturbing crime scene. She brings it home as if it's just another object. But objects don't stare back, right? Her young daughter, Zoe, becomes fascinated with the puppet. She talks to it, she plays with it, she blames it when things go wrong. At first, it feels like a child's imagination running wild, until the accidents start. Broken glass, sudden injuries, a growing sense that someone, or something, is lurking only inches away. Grinning with a carved wooden smile that hides more malice than any living face could. Let's be honest. There's something uniquely terrifying about a toy that refuses to be lifeless. Pinocchio, the symbol of innocent childhood dreams and the hope of becoming a real boy, becomes twisted here, a darker reflection of desire. What if the wish to become real doesn't stop at simply walking and talking, but includes killing? The movie constantly toys with your mind. Is the puppet actually alive? Or is Zoe responsible for everything? The uncertainty becomes the real horror. You start questioning every shadow. Every moment the puppet is alone with someone vulnerable. It plays with that unsettling fear. Maybe the monster isn't what you think it is. Maybe the danger is hiding behind sweet little eyes, smiling innocently. And here's where I want your take. Do you think the puppet is truly possessed? Or is Zoe the one we should fear? The film leaves that mystery dangling, like a puppet on strings, pulling the audience in deeper and deeper. This isn't your typical doll horror movie filled with cheap jump scares. It builds tension slowly, like a whisper in the dark tugging at your nerves. Every creak of the puppet's joints feels like a threat. Every close-up of its frozen grin feels like a warning whispered through wood and varnish. So here's the question. If you found a creepy wooden puppet tied to a murder case, would you dare bring it home? Comment and let me know, because after watching Pinocchio's Revenge, you might think twice before letting any toy sit alone in a room with you at night. 7. The Boy 2. Brahms, 2020. A family moves into an eerie mansion, only to discover that a life-sized doll named Brahms may be more than just wood and porcelain, and you'll be asking yourself, who's really in control? Some toys aren't just toys. Some toys are watchers, manipulators, and silent judges of our every move. The Boy 2. Brahms takes that unnerving idea and wraps it in shadows, whispers, and the cold stillness of a mansion that seems alive. When the Heelshires move in, they think they're starting fresh, leaving trauma behind. But Brahms is waiting, not just a doll, but a presence, tall, still, and unnervingly human. And the first time you see him, you feel it too. That little chill crawling down your spine that says, this isn't normal. Liza, the mother, struggles to balance her family's safety while the doll becomes the focus of her son Jude's attachment. But the tension grows, objects move on their own, doors lock mysteriously, and the doll seems to respond to fear, desire, and curiosity. Every creak of the floorboards feels like Brahms shifting closer. Have you ever felt watched by something that shouldn't be alive? That's the dread this film feeds on. What's haunting isn't just the doll, it's the psychological trap. Brahms feeds on control. He whispers, he commands, he becomes the invisible authority in the house, testing limits and pushing boundaries. And you start to ask yourself, who's really leading the story, the humans, or Brahms himself? It's that uncertainty, that delicious tension, that keeps you glued to the screen, eyes wide, heart racing. There's a scene that sticks with you long after the credits, the way the doll's head tilts, almost imperceptibly, watching the family's reactions. It's quiet, almost gentle, but isn't gentleness terrifying when it comes with intent? Think about the toys you had growing up. Which one felt too real? Too watchful? Too knowing? Could it have been imagining you? And here's a question for you. If a doll in your home seemed alive, would you confront it, ignore it, or run? Could it be a test of your courage, or your sanity? The Boy 2. Brahms is not just about fear of dolls. It's fear of losing control, of being watched by something that obeys no rules but its own. Share your thoughts below. Do you think Brahms is possessed, sentient, or just a reflection of human paranoia? And if this chilling tale already has your mind racing, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because the next doll on our list might just cross the line between fantasy and reality. 8. Trilogy of Terror, 1975. A small, seemingly harmless Zuni fetish doll turns into a relentless predator, proving that the tiniest things can pack the biggest terror. Are you ready to face what hides in plain sight? Some nightmares don't need grand castles, dark forests, or distant planets. Sometimes, they fit snugly in your hand. Trilogy of Terror reminds us of that truth with a story that's as short as it is unforgettable. The infamous segment, Amelia, introduces a tiny Zuni fetish doll. No taller than your forearm, but with a spirit that's ferociously alive. Have you ever seen a toy and felt the sudden urge to toss it across the room, even when it hadn't moved? That's exactly the kind of tension this film thrives on. Amelia, the protagonist, finds herself alone, and the doll, small, wooden, innocent at first glance, becomes her tormentor. Every movement, every squeak, every glint in its eyes whispers danger. Imagine being alone in your apartment and hearing that soft, almost playful clicking sound growing louder. What would you do? Run, hide, or face it, knowing it could leap at any moment with deadly intent? The beauty of this horror is that it preys on your imagination. The smaller the antagonist, the bigger the fear, because our minds fill in the gaps with terror far worse than what we can see. This isn't just about a killer doll. It's about isolation, paranoia, and how easily the ordinary can become monstrous. The suspense builds meticulously, a shadow crossing a wall, a soft scuffle in the background, a glance at a handheld toy that seems off, and every time Amelia tries to escape or hide, the doll adapts, persistent, patient, intelligent in its cruelty. Here's a question to think about. Have you ever noticed a toy lying somewhere and felt like it was staring at you? How does it make you feel? Could a little figurine hold that much power over your mind? That's the brilliance of this segment. It doesn't just scare you. It sticks with you, lingering long after the credits roll. Trilogy of Terror is a perfect example of minimalistic horror done brilliantly. It teaches us that fear doesn't need size or numbers. It thrives on tension, imagination, and the uncanny. Small objects, big dread, ordinary spaces, extraordinary terror. So tell me, if you had a tiny, fierce doll in your home, would you try to destroy it or just leave it be? Comment your answer below, and if your heart's racing already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the next doll on our list is waiting. And it might be closer to home than you think. 9. The Dummy, 1962. A ventriloquist's eerie connection to his lifelike dummy spirals into obsession and horror, and you'll soon wonder who is controlling whom. Have you ever felt the unsettling sensation that an object meant for amusement might be observing you, judging you, even controlling you? The Dummy is the kind of psychological horror that lingers in your mind long after the credits roll. It introduces us to Cliff, a talented ventriloquist whose dummy, Willie, becomes more than just a prop. It becomes a partner in thought, action, and ultimately, in menace. You might ask yourself, can a puppet possess a will of its own? Or is it merely amplifying the darkest corners of the human mind? Cliff's relationship with Willie blurs the line between reality and illusion. When a man can throw his voice and speak through another, where does his own identity end and the puppet's begin? The movie toys with this ambiguity masterfully. Every conversation between Cliff and Willie drips with tension. Every sly glance or whispered word from the dummy makes you second-guess what's real. Imagine seeing a wooden figure smile at you, and that smile seems to mock not just the character on screen, but you, the viewer, as well. The genius of the dummy lies in its psychological depth. Cliff's obsession grows, and the boundaries between his thoughts and the dummy's influence vanish. The story forces you to confront a terrifying notion. Sometimes the true horror isn't supernatural, but the human mind losing control over what it has created. Would you ever trust something that mirrors your thoughts, speaks your secrets, and seems to act independently? There's a tension that builds scene by scene, a creeping dread that nothing about Willie is innocent. Objects in the room, chairs, curtains, reflections, suddenly seem complicit in a conspiracy. And the more Cliff resists, the more the dummy asserts itself. Until the audience is left wondering, is Cliff descending into madness? Or is the dummy genuinely alive? It's the uncertainty that tightens the knot of fear around your chest. Now, I want to ask you, if you had a ventriloquist dummy that seemed to act on its own, would you confront it, hide it, or destroy it? Could you tell where your thoughts end and its influence begins? The dummy doesn't just scare, it haunts your imagination, making you rethink the toys you grew up with, and the silent companions that may have seemed too lifelike. If this story has made your skin crawl just thinking about it, hit like, share, and subscribe, because our next doll on the list might make you reconsider what it really means for an object to be alive. 10. Love Object. 2003. When a lonely man becomes obsessed with a hyper-realistic sex doll. Desire and danger intertwine, and you'll be forced to question where fantasy ends and horror begins. Have you ever wondered what happens when loneliness meets obsession? Love Object explores that unsettling intersection with a story that is as disturbing as it is fascinating. We follow William, a socially awkward man who finds connection in an unexpected form, a doll designed to be the perfect partner. At first, it seems harmless, even comforting, but as William's attachment grows, the boundaries between reality and imagination start to dissolve, and the doll becomes a reflection of his darkest desires. There's something unnervingly intimate about this film. It shows how human obsession can give life to inanimate objects. You start to empathize with William's longing, yet you feel the creeping dread as his world spirals out of control. Imagine treating a doll as a confidant, a companion, even a lover, only to realize that your attachment begins to control your thoughts, your actions, your morality. Have you ever clung to something so tightly that it began to shape who you are? That's the core tension here, and it's terrifying. The horror in Love Object doesn't come from supernatural forces or a malevolent spirit. It comes from intimacy taken too far, from obsession consuming reason. Every interaction William has with the doll raises questions. Who is in control? Is the doll influencing him? Or is he projecting his desires onto it? And what happens when the line between fantasy and reality blurs so completely that the consequences become deadly? The movie invites you to confront these uncomfortable questions. And the answers are never easy. What makes this story linger in your mind is its plausibility. Unlike many classic doll horrors where the threat is external, here it's internal, psychological, and deeply human. You might even catch yourself glancing at everyday objects, wondering if your own mind could give them life under the right conditions. That slow burn terror, the kind that grows from obsession and secrecy, is what keeps you glued to the screen. So let me ask you, if someone you knew became obsessed with a lifelike doll, would you intervene, or step back and watch the consequences unfold? Do you think desire can truly turn into danger? Love Object challenges our assumptions about control, intimacy, and obsession, and it's this psychological tension that makes it one of the most haunting doll horrors ever made. Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the world of dolls is far darker than you think. And the nightmares aren't over yet. And there you have it, 10 chilling journeys into the world of dolls. Each one a reminder that what seems innocent can hide something far more sinister. From haunted puppets to twisted obsessions, these stories linger long after the lights go out. Which of these dolls sent the shivers down your spine the most? I want to hear your thoughts, your theories, and maybe even your own encounters with the uncanny. If your heart is still racing, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because the next horror waiting for you might be closer than you think.